Hello everybody. It's been a while since I last made a video, but now there is a very good reason to do that, because just last week we had a marvelous event organized by the local old school community, and this was an old school cup here in Moscow where I live, and this was only the second event ever, I would say event that gathered people from Russia, old school players, and I managed to get to the semi-finals of this one. Only to be defeated by the powerful Ernamgeddon 4-color Ernamgeddon deck, and it was a blast. So we got this amazing cup. It was organized by the enthusiasts, and it was really amazing. So thank you for that. I got this one card. It says the cup of the capital cup, basically, because Moscow is the capital, and this amazing swag, Time Walk, Volk basically means wolf, and you realize that this is the wolf, but at the same time this is a time walk. Okay, time walk, so you get it. This is the swag that was provided by Konstantin Prishvitsyn. If you don't know him, he's the father of old school magic here in Russia. He lives in Yekaterinburg, but he and his team traveled here, which is really nice. It's nice to finally meet them, and the whole event was a blast. But I would like to tell you about this deck, and as you can see, it's full of sweet legends, but we'll start with the Manna Base. And as for the Manna Base, it's really not that obvious. So okay, let me put the camera like that. So obviously we do have 4 cities of brass, we have 4 badlands, only 2 underground seas, and because I don't have the 4 of them. And I also have 3 mountains, we have 3 swamps, and a whole 6 islands. That is a lot of islands. And we have so many lands because I know that in this format we usually expect some mana denial, we expect some land destruction, obviously. And this is what actually happened. And I managed, thanks to being poor and not being able to afford volcanic islands and more underground seas, thanks to that I was able to usually play safe against Blood Moon, and I really won some of those games just thanks to having some extra basic lands. Of course, this also got me color screwed sometimes, but at the same time it was very nice to have these. Obviously I have the 3 Moxen in the right colors. I have the Sol Ring, because I'm not a fan of putting Sol Ring in any deck that I have, in every deck, but in this deck it's definitely relevant with so many big creatures. Strip Mine really helped me. I was very lucky to draw one in the very first game against my opponent's Library of Alexandria, so it was helpful. Then, so as you can see, once again, a lot of mana, and this was the initial design. I usually think that in this format you expect your lands to be destroyed, and as a result I wanted to have enough mana, and very often I still didn't have enough mana, but when I did, it was thanks to putting so many mana sources. So we obviously have the 2 blue pieces of power, don't have the Time Twister here, didn't want to put it into the deck for obvious reasons. I did have Wheel of Fortune, which I usually still ended up siding out of the deck, because you know, it would give my opponent a better chance of drawing something. So why Wheel of Fortune, not Time Twister? First of all, because I don't have Swords to Plowshares, which would help me to, you know, maximize the potential of Time Twister, and also because I had Animate Dead, and we'll talk about this card later, but there was some tiny synergy with that, discarding and maybe animating your legend, but I never got to use it. So as for restricted cards, we also have this marvelous Spanish Mind Twist and Demonic Tutor. These are auto-include, as you understand, in any card, in any deck that has black. Mana Burn was there with Atlantic, so Mana Drain was actually not the ideal counter spell, I would say. Counter spell, of course, was there as well, 4 of them. And there were some cases where I would wish that I didn't have Mana Drain, but I had Counter Spell instead, because sometimes I would counter a big spell, didn't have anything to play. I don't have a mana sink such as Mishra's Factory, so this is not the ideal use, I would say, the ideal card. it's not strictly better than Counterspell like it is in Swedish, for instance. So as for restricted cards, the last restricted card here is Brain Geyser. Was very good, obviously, with so much mana. So we got this. Also 3 Spell Blasts. If I can, I would usually use Mana Drain first, then 4 counter spells, then I would start adding some extra suboptimal counter spells, and Spell Blast is always my card of choice in this deck, because this deck doesn't necessarily have much more mana than my opponent's deck. Let's say if I play against some other decks that do not have a lot of mana and I have a lot of mana and my deck is controlish, something like that, or have some mana acceleration, then yes, of course I would play Power Sink. But in this case, and it was actually the right choice, because you see, it's not very often that I would have 2 blue mana, even though this was kind of my goal. That's why I have so many islands. So having this colorless mana paid was actually painless very often. As for staples, we also had 4 of these, and they usually worked wonders. They could kill Mishras, they could help me win the damage race, so very, very good. Happy about those. And 2 more burn cards. We've got Fireball and Disintegrate. I'm a fan of Disintegrate. You know, it's been like that like forever, I would say. I always prefer Disintegrate over Fireball. I do understand that, yes, we can do some calculus and kill maybe a couple of creatures, kill our opponent's creature, and the Fireball to do some damage to the face, but I still prefer Disintegrate because of this removal effect. It combats regeneration, which was relevant, by the way, in some games. So Disintegrate, for me, always prefer that, but still wanted to put Fireball just in case, if I needed that. A very good call, and a card that most people wouldn't expect, because this is a really, you know, niche card. Very often people see it as some kind of a trick to animating your creatures when you discard them, but this is actually not the case. So very often I would use it as an efficient way to get out some of my creatures that were countered or maybe killed, and you know, it's only 2 mana. So let's say if I play this one to animate one of my bigger creatures, and I also play another threat, it would be really devastating for my opponent very often. Of course, the negative is that it is an enchantment, but still. Sometimes I would kill my opponent's creature and animate it. I actually animated Birds of Paradise 2 times, can you believe that? Probably was not a good play, but if you saw the board state, maybe you would understand what I mean. And also I sometimes would cast Animate Dead on a card that I just countered or killed. So yeah, that's a very, very good, I would say, choice. Most of the times I didn't regret that. Now we're getting to the most delicious part, which is Legends. Tetsuo Misawa is really underrated. First of all, let me tell you why. Because usually we say that in old school, if the card has a power which is not less than its converted mana cost, it's already a good deal. Because I mean, look at these, like 5/5 for 8 mana, things like that. So he's already good, 3/3 for 3, and this is an amazing ability for 4 mana and tap. He can destroy a tapped creature, just like Royal Assassin, but it can also be a blocking creature, so blocking or tapped, basically any creature that is used, right? Except for maybe Sarah Angel, okay? Sarah Angel is immune to his ability. This was really amazing. So once he gets into the game, very often he would lock your opponent down. And I really suggest that people look at this card. It is so powerful, and I don't know why it is so underrated. Because your opponent will be scared of just using the creatures, because every time you attack, you kill your opponent's creature that is blocking, even before it does damage. So that's simply amazing. Very good card. So this one is Gwendolyn. I think many people are familiar with it. It has 5 power, which makes her bolt proof. Very important. And 3 power, that's actually not bad. I did use the ability a couple of times, I think, so a very, very good card. Which can be said about Boris Devil Boon, but, you know, 2/2 for 5 mana, that's definitely not a good deal. But for a tap, he can make a devil token. Minor demon? Devil? Yes, minor demon token, that's right. Well, he's Devil Boon, but he makes demons, not devils. And he, of course, would often make charm blockers, and I didn't have any ways of making my demons stronger, so it's not really a good card, but still fun. And sometimes I got greedy, you know, not wanting to make some tokens. I would just keep attacking and trying to raise my opponent, and then I would regret it that I didn't make tokens. Solknar is one of the most powerful legends in terms of the balance of abilities, base power and toughness, and the mana cost. So Swamp Walk, 5/5 for 5, that's already great for old school. Swamp Walk, whenever a black spell is successfully cast, gain 1 life, including your opponent's spells. Very powerful. Then we've got this one, Nicol Bolas. You all know him. I made a video on Elder Dragons. 7/7 for 8 mana, very powerful, flying. And when he damages your opponent discards the whole hand. Didn't really get to use this. Unfortunately, I cited out a lot of bigger legends in many matchups because I understood that I just didn't have enough time to get to the late game and cast these. So very often I would just not use this, for example. Nebuchadnezzar was really useful, 3/3 for 5 mana. What he does is you name a card and tap X, and you make your opponent discard all the cards with this name. Basically, this is like Cabal Therapy, if you know this card, but this is much better because it can be repeated. Well, of course, it costs quite a lot of mana, but it doesn't even say that it has to be a non-land card. You can make discard your opponent. You can make your opponent discard a ton of basic lands, for example. That's really powerful. Very good. Of course, he's not bolt-proof, but still. Neither is Pavel, and Pavel is only 5/3, can be pumped. Didn't use him much. The pump ability is nice, but I mean 3 power, not bolt proof, and which is even more important, I would say, not Mishra proof. Okay, so blocking Mishra can destroy him. This guy, on the other hand, has a lot of toughness, 5/7, so 7 toughness. I actually think that in old school Magic, maybe some other formats, toughness is a little bit underrated, because in a creature stalemate, if your opponent has a lot of creatures, just like you do, and you have a creature with a lot of toughness, then very often it would mean that your opponent will be scared of fighting it, because your creature will just keep killing your opponent's creatures. Even if it doesn't really kill your opponent's creature, then you will safely attack and block. So, I don't know. I think that actually toughness is something to think about in many, many formats. Because we often think of creatures as just a card, you know, like trading them 1 for 1. But in some matches it does become relevant. And this is a kind of a sister of this guy, because she has a very similar ability. Again, something really random. So it always fascinated me how these legends were created. I usually imagine that it's some random card generator, like 5/4 for 6 mana, 2 of them blue, add 1 blue, this one add 1 black. Why would you add 1 black mana? I didn't know. I get it, he has a skull, this is a skull mana, what is this? This is just crazy. But this is why I love these old school legends. It was so tempting to build a deck. Really am happy that I managed to make it work as well. So this one was actually quite useful, because I wanted to have a blue mana, and my opponents, when they saw that I had 2 blue mana open, including the mana from the princess, you know, this is like Princess Maleficenta, the evil queen from Snow White, really amazing art, lives in her castle, she's so evil, and basically sometimes she would be killed just not to give me 1 extra blue mana, which was a wise decision, by the way. And Gunnarsson, the last one, he is 5/5, trample for 8 mana, that's a lot of mana. And when he kills a creature, you deal your opponent 1 damage, which always pisses me off, because it should be your opponent loses 1 life, I don't know. But he's red, so dealing 1 damage kind of makes sense, but in a vampiric way, I don't know. And so yeah, trample is actually very relevant, and very often people would be scared to block this guy because it would mean that he would make me gain 1 life and deal some extra damage. So it would be, you know, not like he's 5 damage plus trample, it's 1 extra damage. So yeah, it's difficult to play around him, but he is very powerful. I enjoy the art. I like this kind of a night scene in the twilight, in the dusk maybe, and these trees look like some hands of the dead, and he is what he is, I don't know, some kind of a giant maybe. He is maybe trying to saw some bones or some fairy dust. I don't know what he's doing, but it really looks amazing. I really like the art. We should talk about it in a separate video. Getting to the sideboard, as I said, in some matchups I had to remove the bigger legends, and I would put some counter burn components. This is the burn part. Love these Douglas Schuller altars, signed cards. I would also put Control Magic. Control Magic really helped me a lot. You can imagine how powerful it is in a creature-based meta. I've had a lot of white weenies, black weenies, mono green decks, Ernemgeddon, so I would say it was always relevant. Control Magic. Then we have Earthquake, which was also relevant again in the creature meta. Sometimes I used it as a finisher. And Stone Rain. Sometimes it was a good call to kill my opponent's much needed land to make them color screwed, something like that. An extra Disintegrate, again, if I saw that some of my cards weren't so useful. So the burn component was really important. And since, as you can imagine, a lot of people played blue, I did have 3 Red Elemental Blasts and the obligatory anti-the-deck cards, Energy Flux, which I did use. And it was a good call because there was one player who played the deck, and this card did help me against him. So overall, this is my deck. I really enjoyed it. I really enjoyed the whole event. This was my very first real life old school tournament. I did play a little bit of old school when I gathered some events, some gauntlets. I played with my friends, and I even played with my friend Manuel in Spain when I just traveled, and I played with my online friend, which was a really pleasant moment. This was the very first competitive old school Magic event, and I hope to play more. And I thank you for watching. If you have any questions and maybe suggestions about this deck, please let me know. Really, I'm incredibly happy that I managed to play some of the fun cards and at the same time have powerful staples, which helped me to get to the semifinals. Thank you for watching. There will be more videos soon, so stay tuned. Thank you. Bye.